So if I go back last year when we were in Vegas, I became the sitting chairman for the RSPA Board of Directors. And the outgoing chairman, Tom Reichert, said, here's an opportunity, or should I say a challenge. And as he handed over the gavel to me, he gave me some words of advice, and he said, Fraker, get out of your comfort zone and go find us a new CEO, and a damn good one, too. Well, we immediately formed a CEO search committee and began our search. At the same time, Elena Turner, the RSPA staff, the executive committee, and myself took care of the day-to-day operations and anything that arose within the RSPA community. And I'd like to, at this time, thank Elena Turner, because Elena, you were the glue that held that whole office together. And thank you so much for everything you did when we were 9 months without a CEO. Let's give Elena a round of applause. You're the best, kiddo. And 5 months later, we hired a new CEO. We hired a CEO with a refreshing new and slightly different approach to business. Well, maybe not that difference of an approach, but just the right amount of uniqueness in his management style. And he was someone that really came in and grabbed the bull by the horns, got us all on the same page, thinking the same way. But all joking aside, great leaders deliver day in and day out, 7 days a week. And in the last year, I've had the opportunity and the honor to get to know John Kirk very well and work with him 7 days a week. In fact, I've come to understand a few things from him. Number one, I don't think the man sleeps. Number two, he sure as hell doesn't know what weekends are for. And I think that Kim, his wife, needs to go out and buy a big calendar and put it on the refrigerator and put big red X's on the weekends so he might develop a couple of hobbies or two. The man never stops. He delivers every single day. And the other thing as you get to know John, you find out that he's an old football coach, that he's an avid sports fan, and that he loves sports analogies. I'm sure he'll use some while you're here. Well, John, this one's for you. So in another industry, there was another leader who delivered every day. And his name was Karl Malone of the Utah Jazz, a.k.a. the mailman. Game after game, night after night, week after week, Karl delivered. Well, John, you're my Karl. And John is the best person. He's the best person to head up this organization. And he is the best leader to help take us and our community into the future and embrace all the opportunities that are in front of us. So please help me by putting your hands together. Let's bring on stage your new president and CEO, Mr. John, a.k.a. the Mailman Kirk.
Great to be here, and what a great job by the staff behind the scenes. Jack Feichner and a cast of thousands. Let's give Jack and his team a great hand because they're doing an amazing job. How many of you ever played Little League baseball or softball at any level? I'll bet some of you have some great memories. I grew up in Lackawanna, New York, just outside of Buffalo, and when I was a kid, if you were to win a trophy in a Little League competition, it was the equivalent of a Super Bowl ring to a 10 or 11 or a 12-year-old because the trophies were hard to come by back in those days. They didn't hand them out that often, and my buddies, we would keep track, and I didn't have that many. But one of the things I remember when it comes to Little League, and this applies to us, I think you'll understand where I'm going with this. Every once in a while, there would be a pitcher that you'd hear about that was had a little bit more heat maybe a little bit more variety along with that velocity that you were going to have to deal with. And I remember those guys as you kind of grew up in the sport. And I used to watch them warm up. You'd hear about them a couple days before the game. And you'd watch them warm up. And you remember before a game, I used to bat third in the City League. And you remember how bright the ball is before the game when that pitcher's up there warming up. And you can hear that pop in the glove as you're watching those balls come flying in there. And the neat thing about baseball, they pitch it and you hit it. You've got somebody on the mound looking you in the eye, basically saying you can't do it. And you're looking back saying you can do it. And he might get you in the first inning. You got your first base coach, you got your third base coach, you got your team in the dugout rooting for you, and you go down in the first inning. And maybe he gets you in the fourth or fifth inning too. But late in the game, you get the hit. You get on base. And I can remember one time in particular, my dad, he had been boasting to my Uncle Doug about me as a ball player, and I wasn't that good, but my dad was proud of me. And I remember my Uncle Doug went to a game. He was at the ball game, and I wanted to get on base. And I remember that third at-bat late in the game, I got on base. And I remember standing on second base with my hands on my hips, looking like I expected to get there, and I was really thinking, man, that was hard. I'm glad I got on base and didn't embarrass my dad. But the point is, you guys have been adjusting to velocity and variety your whole career. That's what you do every day. You dig in and you get ready for that next at-bat. That's what we do in this community. That's what makes this community so special and so different. So during this event, we're going to have some good hitting coaches. We're going to have some good defensive coaches. We're going to get in the batting cage. And in 72 hours, we're going to walk out of here just a little bit better. We're going to go out with a better stroke, and we're going to apply it to our game. And that's exciting, and that's what this coaches clinic is about. You know what's neat about this coaches clinic? The faculty that we have assembled is so impressive. They all submitted their work on time. We spent most of July practicing, and every one of them have embraced the concept of a safe harbor of learning. They are here for our attendees. And the neat thing about a coach's clinic, if you put a coach in front of an audience, and even if some of that audience may be competitors, that coach is going to tell you everything he or she knows. They cannot help it. They're so passionate about their subject, that's going to trump any defensive mechanism that they might have. If you put a racehorse on a track, the racehorse will not stroll. The racehorse will run. We've got racehorses in this faculty, and they're going to help you. When you get a call from a David Shaw from Postec, and he's willing to share the knowledge that he's picked up because of the miles on the odometer that he has as it relates to business valuation and improving the value of a business, all the way to an ESOP and other alternatives that he might have assessed over the years, and he's willing to share that with our attendees, now that is exciting. And we have got example after example after example of that kind of a situation. Because we don't want to just be relevant. You know, relevant's important. You hear that a lot. We want to be relevant. Well, relevant means you have an appropriateness or an alignment, a reasonable alignment to market opportunities. And certainly we want to be relevant. But make no mistake about it, in the RSPA and in this community, we want to attack victory. We're not happy with relevance. We want to attack victory. Relevance may be the first stop, but we want to attack victory. Let me share a few numbers with you. $258,751.90. According to the study, Data Never Sleeps, that's the amount of business that Amazon did in 2017 every minute of every day. Here's another number for you. 3,607,080. That's the number of Google searches done every minute of every day in 2017. 456,000. That's the number of tweets done every minute or sent every minute of every day in 2017. And how about this one? 4,146,600. That's the number of YouTube videos viewed every minute of every day in 2017, according to Data Never Sleeps 5.0. And if that's not enough for you, 90% of the world's data today was created in the last 2 years. It sounds like we got some pictures that we may not have seen before. They got a little bit more variety, they got a little bit more velocity. But we got a lot of adjusting that's already been done, and a lot of desire and heart and know-how that's going to allow us to do any other adjusting that lies ahead as we get to the next level. We've got retailers today that are managing physical locations, they're managing their web locations, and they're managing a wide variety of assortment. And they're trying to establish a common trademark with their customers, common pricing strategies, common identity. And they can't do it without machine learning or artificial intelligence. But as Mark said, people still need people. And that is great news for us. I want to talk to you about something really important here in the path that we've been on. And I want to make sure you're 100% clear on where our head is at. When I was new to business, I worked for a CEO. He didn't know me, but I knew him. I was an entry-level employee, and I didn't know the difference between cash flow and revenue at the time. His name was Chuck Exley. And he would do quarterly satellite broadcasts. And I always looked forward to them as a young employee with a young family, and he'd explain the financials. And he'd always make you feel like regardless of what the unemployment rate was, regardless of what was going on with inflation or interest rates, if we did our job as individuals, we were going to be just fine. And when I later went to the headquarters office in years to come as an industry manager, Mr. Exley had long since retired. And he was always such a respectful, dignified CEO from my vantage point. And I'd heard a story about him, and it went something like this. He was in the seats of a program manager delivering his program to Mr. Exley and others. And when the presentation was over, Mr. Exley simply said, "Great delivery, great story, great tools. But it's hard to look smart with bad numbers." I took that to heart. And I'm going to tweak that, what I'll call the Exley doctrine, as relates to the RSPA. And I think it's really important for you to know this, especially at an event like this. It's going to be hard for us to look smart unless we're bringing great value to every one of our members. Every business model, every member, regardless of the size and scope, we've got to deliver value, and that's what the RSPA team thinks about every day. And I want you to know that. It's hard for us to look smart if we're not bringing you great value, and that's the way we go about our business. So what have we been up to as of late? Our structure today has some boxes in it and some talent in it that we didn't have 6 or 7 months ago. We now have Dave Menton, who is a strength coach for all things sales, service, and operations. He's lived in your world. He's walked in your shoes. Marie Perry is a chief strategist for us. She can analyze market data and help you analyze opportunities to expand your portfolio. Kathy Meter, you'll hear from in just a few minutes, is our VP of Education Services. She's going to establish something you're going to be really excited about. Chris Arnold is our new Marcom person. Chris, when I got to Charlotte, Chris was a temporary employee. He's a permanent employee now, and he's really working hard to drive how we communicate our message across the channels available to us. We've got to be sure we put our flag in the moon because we don't want to be a source for you. We want to be the source for you, and Chris is chartered with communicating what we are doing along those lines. And we've got an existing team. Elena Turner was mentioned earlier as our CFO. We've got Sarah Brennan, who's been with us for some time now. We've got Ashley Nagy and Gabby Core, and everyone communicates and wakes up every day realizing that it's about value to our members. I want to share some vital signs with you. People. We can't have an elite team if we don't have elite people. When we talk about being the source, not a source, what we're really saying is we're going to elevate our brand. We don't want to maintain or move our brand. We want to elevate our brand. We want to get to a different place. And who should our best salespeople be? They shouldn't be our salespeople. They should be our members, because we've earned it. If we deliver great value to you, you're going to tell somebody. When I read a good book, the first thing I do is tell my wife, tell my daughter, tell my sons. Because you're enthusiastic about it. You're fired up about it. You learn something. You took something good from it, so you tell somebody. Our best sales force ought to be you. But we've got to show you, not tell you. We've got to earn it. And that goes right back to that Exley doctrine. I want to share with you what you're going to see on our show floor. This is the backdrop to our booth, but what we've done here on one slide, we've basically summarized our approach. So there's three strategic pillars. The first is member value, the second is industry position, and the third is organizational strength. Now, from those three strategic pillars that represent our strategic plan, we've got three themes. And those themes kind of encapsulate and guide what we do every day. The first theme is we want to increase the quality touches of value to our members. We can't just be about two big events. We've got to be about much more than that, and Kathy's going to talk about some of those things, but don't be surprised if you see regional events, if you see some technology and service events to get the service community involved, because we have so much culture out there that we can tap into. And that kind of plays into that second theme. We've got to maximize the mobilization of our community. That's why we've got an RSPA faculty. That's why tomorrow we'll be taking a picture or an image of that faculty, and that image will be on our wall in Charlotte. When you share your expertise at an RSPA event, that is not a ho-hum event. That's a big event. You're part of our faculty. And we're going to have a distance learning faculty too, and Kathy will share more of the same with you. But we've got to maximize the mobilization of this community. One of the things our chairman, Mark, shared with us last year when he first became the chairman, he had Penelope with him. And he was talking about commitment. And Mark Fraker has been just an unbelievable chairman for us, and he's talked about commitment just about every day. So we've got to maximize the mobilization of our community. And last but not least, we are going to build a global business. Now, you might say, everybody's trying to build a business, John. Why am I outlining that as a theme or accenting that as a theme? Well, it'd be really easy for us to focus on signing up new members. What we'd rather do is focus on building a business that our members want to be part of, because we have elevated that brand and we have delivered the value to all the different business models. And you'll be the judge of that, ultimately. But we wake up every day saying, let's build a business the right way. Yeah, we'll do some selling, because we've got to communicate. But we believe you'll decide to be part of this and help us sell. You'll be the best sales force we have. So on one chart, you just got a sense for our strategic pillars and our themes. Now, there's no better clearinghouse than the RSPA. Think about this. A clearinghouse is a place where you can collect, create, and distribute good stuff. Collect, create, and distribute good stuff. So we've got this unbelievable team IQ. We have got to strike the balance between leading and listening. We're going to have a few of the good ideas out of Charlotte, but the best ideas are out in the field. So we are going to tap in to that great resource called this amazing community. You know all those impressive numbers I shared with you in that Data Never Sleeps survey? Can you imagine if we had a magic button right here, right now on this stage, and I could press it, and we could see the number of the combined installed base of this community? I'll bet you that also would be a staggering number. Can you imagine if we could press a button and get the combined number of folks you employ every day in this community? What if we could get the number of service calls you're going to respond to in the next hour as a community? Staggering numbers. Data Never Sleeps should add a category for the RSPA and this association, because what you guys do every single day for your customers. There's no other association like it, and we can't be more thankful to be part of this. Now, a couple of examples. I'm going to share some examples of branded content. I'm going to go through this with you pretty quick, but I want you to come into our booth and ask the questions on these 3 examples. The first example is what we call a century walk. This is really our team in Charlotte partnering with one of our members, Tony Berry, out of Charlotte, that allowed us to walk into his territory and turn doorknobs as a managed services provider, so we get a real-world perspective on what's happening today in our environment. And we have consolidated, through the great work of Chris Arnold and Marie Perry, we've consolidated some of our findings. It's our first branded content that we're publishing for you. We'll make it available to you in our booth. But there's some really good takeaways. Let me tell you what happens when you cold call. By the way, it's an ingredient in the recipe. It's not the recipe. It's an ingredient in the recipe. It's not the recipe. Let me tell you what we could do right now in Nashville. I could guarantee you, I can't guarantee many things. I could guarantee you that if we went out and did some cold calling, one or more of these 6 things would happen today. Number 1, we'd close for a needs assessment. Number 2, we'd find a new remodel. Number 3, we'd find a change of ownership. Number 4, we'd find a new construction. Number 5, we'd find a new competitor. And last but not least, we'd find a recent competitive win that we didn't even compete in. And as a managed services provider, those numbers are even more astounding. So it's an ingredient. It's not a recipe. And you'll hear from me that you have to guard against polarity, meaning getting the opposite outcome of what you're looking for. We don't want to overheat our sales force. I always guard against that. You know, even Mark talks about sports, and he's right. There are some great lessons there, but I've been around some really tough coaches that play volleyball with the football over the goalpost from time to time to mix it up. I've seen coaches in the heat of training camp have the punter kick to the offensive lineman and let him kick the ball catch the ball for the entertainment of the rest of the team. It's fun. You got to mix it up once in a while. So cold calling's important. That document will help you in some ways, as you can see what we experienced when we did it ourselves. And we'll do more century walks along the way because we're going to learn as we do it. But we want to talk to you about it in the booth. Second thing, we hear a lot about all the different recurring revenue opportunities you have. And that's certainly important. Jimmy does a great job with that, and he'll be teaching a breakout. Jim Roddy will be teaching a breakout during this year's Retail Now. One of the things we're trying to do is determine what folks are actually buying. Not just the fact that there are 40 or 45 opportunities for recurring revenue, but what percentage of the technology dollar is going to certain things. So we're in the process of gathering that data now. This study is not done, but we've started down the trail, and we're getting some very meaningful information. We want to share that with you. And then this next one is something we're going to launch during this event, and it's a targeted operating model for VARs, targeted financial operating model for VARs. Now, we've got a questionnaire that we'll give you, and if you sign up to take part in this, we're going to find out from you. Again, there's no other clearinghouse better than the RSPA community, and then we'll aggregate that data. We'll protect your confidentiality. In fact, we'll destroy your data once we aggregate it, but we'll find out things like what's a reasonable growth rate for new sites, healthy growth rate, year over year for new site delivery? What percentage of your sites are still client server? What percentage of your sites are all in the cloud? What percentage of your total revenue is recurring revenue? And what percentage of that recurring revenue is non-traditional recurring revenue, meaning it's not from service, it's not from help desk, it's from a different tentacle revenue stream coming into your business. We'll look at revenue per head count. We'll look at revenue per employee, profit per employee. Are you using any managed services provider tools like remote management tools or professional services automation tools? We can find this out from you, aggregate the data, and deliver a tremendous tool for you to get your sea legs as to where do you stand in today's environment. And we think there may be a few surprises in that data. So come by our booth, get more information on it, sign up, because we need you. There is such strength and intellectual capacity in this community. Nobody adjusts like you. Nobody is as resilient as you. Nobody is going to fight like you. And nobody's going to figure it out better than you. So let's leverage the team IQ and attack this victory together. And this is one way we can collect data that informs your strategy. And we promise we will protect your confidentiality, and we will destroy the data once we aggregate it. It's for the good of the community. You're probably wondering why I've got a mountain behind me here that's going to show up any minute. This is our RSPA Academy, and I'm getting ready to introduce Kathy Meter to you. And I wanted to just share a couple of comments, because I think if there's one thing to remember about what we've talked about today, it's a principle I'm going to share with you. I read a book recently called No Barriers. It's about a gentleman named Eric Weinenmayer. He lost his vision early in life, and he endeavored to climb some of the highest summits in the world. And when he was climbing Mount Everest with his team, again, this is a gentleman that lost his vision, and he's climbing Mount Everest. When he got close to the summit, one of the things that stood out from me in the book was a member of his camp grabbed him by the shoulders and said, "Eric, get ready to step on top of the world." That's what you might expect. You're ready to accomplish this unbelievable feat. But then weeks later, when they made it back down to base camp, and he was safe, which, by the way, the descent's no picnic, a member of his base camp back at the camp itself that didn't make the trip grabbed him by the shoulders and said, "Eric, don't let Everest be the greatest thing you ever did." Now, you guys have had your share of Mount Everest. Some of you have gotten to the top. Some of you have just identified the range and you're heading toward it. Some of you are on the journey. Maybe you're just getting started. But the one thing we have in common at the RSPA, and it includes all of us, includes my team, we don't want what we've done in the past to be the greatest thing we've ever done. The greatest thing we've ever done is ahead of us. And by the way, 2 weeks ago Saturday, I have a new granddaughter named Sophia Elizabeth Kirk. And one of the things I'm going to do when this event's over, I'm going to drive there to Richmond over the weekend, and I'm going to hold Sophia, and that'll be one of the greatest things I've ever done, I'll tell you that. So let's give Sophia a hand, will you?